On today's episode of Beyond Resilience, our hosts, Dr. Jamie Renbarger and Catherine Haffey, are discussing how to move forward after being done with treatment.
So excited to be here with you today, Jamie.
Yes, I know. Me too. I am as well. How are you doing?
I'm good. I know we're going to talk about an interesting topic today that I know is near and dear to both of our hearts.
Yeah,
so I'm excited.
Yeah. Before we jump into that, I'm just wondering how you're doing. What's on your heart today?
You know, I started this new study, and it's a collaboration between a high performance coach who is just amazing and a high performance pastor. So the two of them coming together in kind of an unlikely pair, but it's so interesting to see the dynamic of the two and just their conversation and their prompts for us to be what we're thinking about. And I think it's super interesting and helpful for me personally. Mm-hmm. And some of that stuff I'll share definitely with this because it's kind of relevant.
Sure.
But yeah. I mean, I think anytime you have a cross kind of pollination of two different types of studies or specialties, it's interesting to see the final product of that and how it is thought-provoking and how it's really benefiting those who are on the receiving end of it. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to share some of their thoughts and what they're working on, and I think it's super relevant to what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
How about you?
Wow. Well, first, I'm just so curious and definitely curious to hear more about this experience for you. Mm-hmm. And so that's the first thing that comes up in response to your comments there. The other thing is here we are in a collaboration and a cross-pollination coming at this important area, right, of the humanistic side of the cancer experience from two really unique perspectives.
I know. Isn't that cool that we get to do this? Because I think to be able to talk about a topic like this and to be able to talk about it from patient coach and patient physician perspectives with something like this, I think it's going to be I hope so anyway, super helpful to our listeners, and definitely hopefully get something, some gold nuggets out of this.
Yeah, definitely. Excellent. Well, I am coming into today just excited to be sharing space with you, and and feeling really in a good spot. So
I love that. That. Well, I say we just jump on into this amazing topic. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So today we are going to be talking about the experience of finishing cancer treatment, or finishing at least the most intensive part of cancer treatment, and what that brings up for people, what that experience is like, and how to navigate it, right? Or at least our experiences and thoughts on ways to navigate it.
Sure.
So with that, Catherine, I'm wondering if you would be willing to talk a little bit about what your experience was like as you finished, not necessarily all of your treatment through the end of hormone therapy, but certainly the upfront, more intensive part of your treatment, or whatever part you want to touch on. What the experience was like to ring the bell, as often happens, and what went along with that experience for you.
First of all, I wish there was somebody like you around after my treatment, because I would have gone and rang your bell and said, "What? How help me, help me navigate this. There's a lot of feelings of like frustration, and I think fear, anxiety, all the unknowns, because basically your doctor, says, well, okay, you're done. So now you can go celebrate life and go live your life, and it's embrace your new normal. And what exactly is my new normal now? Because I'm kind of changed. I'm changed physically. I'm changed emotionally. I'm changed in all ways, shapes, and forms. I can't go back to that old life, nor would I want to, because I think that's the biggest danger, honestly, is going back to status quo, or worse, just kind of like brushing it under the rug and saying, it was so painful, I can't relive it. I want to go back to that old way, but I can't. So what do you do with these emotions, and how do you move forward, which I think is the most important way to do. We gotta move forward, right? We don't want to get stuck in that old way of thinking I'm sick, or nothing happened. I mean, there's kind of like one paradigm shift into another, and we've got to kind of find a way through that and move forward, so that, okay, I'm changed by this experience. I don't want to go back, but I also want to acknowledge that this thing happened to me, and how am I going to look at life now in a new paradigm shift, in a new perspective, through a new lens.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I so appreciate how you talk through all of that, because it's such an important part of the whole journey, and can be so incredibly overwhelming. From my perspective as an oncologist, right? I think one of the things that drew me to the field of oncology is just the intimacy, honestly, of working with a patient and a family as they navigate this journey. The medical side of it is so important, and yet it's this deep human connection and opportunity to walk this journey with someone through not only the treatment, but also as they navigate life, and what life is to them at this point.
Absolutely.
And in some sense, and I'm curious if this resonates with you at all or not, but it's almost like the treatment part from I don't know, I'm going to maybe stumble over this a little bit, but from an emotional perspective, I feel like there's often such an emphasis on the to-dos, right? All the clinic visits, the scans, the treatment, whether that's radiation, surgery, chemotherapy, on and on and on. There's a lot happening. And in some senses, it feels like that becomes or can become consuming. And there's not necessarily a lot of time to think about the stuff that suddenly, as you finish, you have way more time to think about it than maybe you even want, right? And that is, oh my gosh, life. Like, what's that? How do I want that to look? Does that resonate with you at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's the what do we do now? We're used to all this, like you said, scheduling, and I almost feel like that scheduling can be part of a security blanket. So you've got that care team around you, and you feel like, okay, as long as I'm going to be getting a blood draw here, or I've got a treatment here, or I've got nurses asking me how I'm doing here, and then all of a sudden that's gone, and you see, you go to your doctor for the last appointment, and he says, okay, you're either cured or call us if you need us. And okay, what does that look like? Like, well, if you have bone pain that doesn't go away, or if you have another lump, Or if you have a cough that is nagging, and I'm thinking, okay, I could have all of those, like not necessarily a lump, but I could have two of the
Yes.
three, right? And so I'm thinking about this, and I think what happens is that there's a bit of paranoia that you leave, and I've talked to a lot of women who are like this. I think, wow, I've had like this pain in my hip, and I don't know if it's
Absolutely.
from working out too hard or lifting that heavy box, or if it's something I need to be worried about. And so what happens? They go to the worry, right? They go to the worry automatically, and they think, oh, what happens if it's come back? And it's a cycle, perpetual cycle, over and over again of, I have a cough, or I have this, and they can never really get away from that shadow of fear of the unknown, because their bodies let them down once. Why wouldn't it happen again?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I'm sure you deal. Yeah. I'm sure you kind of deal with some of this stuff, right? With, okay, what do I do?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. First, I have to just say, what I want to say is I have this sort of personal joke. It's not a joke in any way, shape, or form, that I can turn absolutely anything into cancer, right? Any ache, pain, sign, symptom in anyone, anytime. Yeah.
Right.
So I can only imagine it from your experience, and that can be terrifying and paralyzing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, who wants to live in paranoia and fear their whole life? That's miserable.
yeah.
So, I mean, I think what you offer with your services in actually moving through that and talking about that. Mm-hmm. Of course, mental health is much more of an issue now. So people are actually talking about that. We're talking about the issues that really we didn't talk about as much 13 years ago when I was diagnosed. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's super important that you need, like, if you are feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling like you can't just shake this, and even with a support group, you're not able to move forward, that it's super helpful to get yourself coaching, counseling, or to get yourself through mental health. And don't be afraid to do that. That is a part of moving forward, to acknowledge that. And that is, again, I believe that moving forward in this journey is super important to heal and to define your new paradigm of a happy, healthy life post-cancer.
Absolutely. Yes. So well said. And, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. For me,
right,
being able to sit with people knowing the experience that they've had, or have at least a pretty good concept of what they've been through in terms of treatment, and the impact that can have, and that the cancer experience can have mentally, emotionally, physiologically, cognitively, and then to sit with people and have deep, hard conversations about life.
Yeah.
And how they want to live life, is so exciting, and wonderful and scary, and so incredibly important. This is a unique situation to be in, where suddenly you have this wake up call saying, okay, you know what, life is not forever. Life is a finite experience, and now that you've had this traumatic experience and have gotten through treatment for this significant illness, how do you want to move forward, right? What are your priorities, and how do you support yourself to get back to or get to whatever your new normal is? And that's so critical and can be so overwhelming. I often hear from people, I don't even know where to begin. Right?
I get it. Yeah.
And so being able to sit with folks and break it down and process some of the experiences that they've been through, and to really think about how do I want life to be moving forward? How do I want to spend my time? That's, again, I think, such an important part of the entire process, and can feel so scary, especially when you're so used to being so tied to this amazing, often healthcare team, and suddenly you're not seeing them very much. And
yeah. And I think that, Jamie, you bring up a great point that I just want to make sure we get in there, is that you have your team, right, that surrounds you. But I think it's really important that we become collaborators with our team. We're so used to being taken care of, but we have to be part of that self-care team as well. And one of the things that I'm teaching, I think, to some women in my group is like, we need to take responsibility for our own health. And there's studies out there that support this, that modifying lifestyle factors can make a big difference in our prognosis to receive a reoccurrence. So it's so exciting, that we actually are able to modify lifestyle factors. So we make intentional decisions to do certain things, which I know we're going to talk about, with nutrition and exercise and proper mindfulness, sleep, things like that. But we need to know that, okay, our bodies made this cancer, but our bodies can heal from it, and we need to take some responsibility to get ourselves in the right headspace. Yeah. And then we need help with that, and that's when we seek assistance either through in a group setting or coaching, counseling, or things like this. And I love what you also said, Jamie, about servicing the family, because it doesn't just affect us, it affects our whole family. So it's really important to kind of tap into where's our family after all this?
Absolutely.
How are they dealing with our treatment, and just to kind of check in, to check in with that, just to make sure that how are you feeling? Mm-hmm. Do we need to seek some counseling, some help with this, just to talk about what we've been through?
Absolutely. And again, I think going back to the early part of our conversation, often so much energy goes into what do we need to do to make it through, to survive this process, this treatment, that it's once treatment is finished, that both as an individual and individual members of a family, but also as a couple, as a family unit, that the opportunity to really do work together, right? Spend time together, potentially seek family therapy, counseling, coaching together, to really move forward in the best possible way, can be a game changer. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can't stress that more. I can speak for my family personally. I had a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I think I wanted to be so strong to not scare them. So harbored a lot of this inside. However, it helped me kind of too, because I kind of had to fake it till I made it kind of thing, where I am strong super mom, everything's fine. Oh, I'm fine for them. And then eventually I started to feel what I was telling them. It took some time, but I also feel like sometimes that's easier said than done, right? Yeah. So we need to also make sure that if we're feeling a certain way, it's overwhelming, and we are overwhelmed with all these feelings of, fear, anxiety, grief, because our life is no longer the same. It's completely different. It's completely changed. And to make sure that we get assistance in that. And that's what's also really important, that we surround ourselves with really positive people, not people that are always going to feel sorry for us, because that's hard too. It doesn't allow us to move forward and to gain strength into this new life that we can't look back. We can't change what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we've got to keep moving forward and keep building on. And it could present a really neat opportunity of change, something we've always wanted to do. Now is our chance to do it. And we might need help doing that. So an exercise program that I always wanted to do, but I never had time for it. Well, guess what? Now you need to make time for it.
Yep.
That healthy eating, I'll do it tomorrow. Well, now we need to do it today. And priorities of self-care, I'm on the bottom of the list. Nope, you need to be moved up to the top. That's how it needs to be. So just making sure you're surrounding yourself with super positive people that are going to support you in this new chapter of health, I think is super, super important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you bring up an important point. You mentioned this, I think, a little earlier in our conversation. And that is really, probably picked up on this by now, but today really our focus is on the experience of finishing treatment.
Right.
And we both are very passionate about the best ways to support people through the entire cancer experience, and especially as, during this period of time, right? You, from your perspective as a health and wellness coach, and really providing critical support for individuals as they walk this path, and me as a physician coach, working with people and having deep conversations to really help in supporting them moving forward. And don't worry, folks. Don't worry, everybody. Right? We also want to get into the nitty gritty details of what do I do about my nutrition? What do I do about exercise? And so that's coming. And those key things are really important to both of us, and to share with you our thoughts and ideas and experiences with some of those things. And we feel like this is a launching off point of sitting with that experience of finishing treatment.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Jamie, if you are onboarding a patient post-treatment,
Mm-hmm.
what would be a couple of the questions that you might ask a patient who is just unsure, not really knows it needs to change, but unsure and not really trusting of own self, own body, and what to tell, but is a mother maybe of either adult children or young children, and wants to portray that strong, but maybe doesn't quite have that inner strength yet. What would you tell, or what would you ask a patient to kind of direct them into maybe a more thought-provoking area?
Yeah. So just so I'm clear, so it sounds like you're describing someone like you, right?
Yeah,
Or in your
like somebody like
experience,
me.
right? Someone
Yeah.
who's finishing or has just finished up treatment, and or could be anywhere, frankly, in their course of their cancer journey,
Mm-hmm.
and is struggling with and wanting to really stay strong for their kids.
Right.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
family, parents,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you know.
So the first thing that comes up for me is a curiosity about why that's important to that person.
That's good.
Right? What's driving that goal, those feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and to spend some time exploring that.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is this is scary, right? This is terrifying, traumatizing, all of that. Not only for you, for the person, right, experiencing the disease, but for the teenagers, for the spouse, for the, parents, all of it. And so understanding kind of where that need comes from and what's wrapped up in it,
Mm-hmm.
as a way to begin to process it, to move forward toward that ultimate goal. I would also, the other piece to that for me as a physician coach, would be to explore what kinds of vulnerable conversations have happened with the kids.
Yeah.
Right. Because sometimes completely avoiding the scary stuff, the potential outcomes, like death, or significant change in what I'm able to do, how I feel, whatever that is, that can also be scary, right? That can create a lot of anxiety if it's not just out there.
Right.
And so it's a balance. And those would be probably the two key things that I would initially explore with you or with any client who I was working with who had that stated goal. So.
I think that's good. That acknowledges maybe things that are there but not brought out, and allows us then, once they're brought out, and it could be like, like this aha, then you're able again to figure out what is the next steps from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think sometimes when we just kind of keep walking, right, without acknowledging anything, and we just keep going forward, we may not really be going forward. We may just kind of, our wheels are turning without really going forward. And I think that's super important to really ask those questions and find out, what's really important, and moving on from there. Yeah, that's really, I would have loved that. I wish you were around.
We still have those conversations and opportunities for that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. The other thing I wanted to just touch on that you brought up that's so important is the importance of having support or seeking support for close members of your family who are also impacted. For the people may or may not know that the NCI, the National Cancer Institute, actually defines a cancer survivor as anybody who's been impacted by cancer, not just the person who has had the disease itself.
Yeah,
right.
That's good.
So your husband, your kids, they're all cancer survivors.
Right.
And while they haven't gone through the treatment themselves, have been dramatically impacted by the disease.
Yes.
And so often can have some very similar questions and self-reflection and fears come up for them as well. So I wonder, would you be willing to talk at all about your experience or your family's experience with that?
Oh yeah. I think that because I didn't dive into some of those questions, I kind of have to assume or guess. And that's why it's so important not to do what I'm saying. It's really important to go to the source and find out, because I could be totally wrong. But I believe that because I was trying to portray this image, that I'm not really sure they thought it was as serious as it really was, which is okay, for young kids trying to understand how this is going to impact my life. I think that was okay for them. And I know everybody's probably a little different, right, with how it's a personal decision how much you're going to tell your kids about your cancer journey. One of my friends, her kids were young enough that she didn't even tell her kids at all anything, because she was so worried that they would think, oh, mommy's going to die. So she didn't even go there. And I think it's just a personal choice how you end up telling your kids, and then moving forward, where do you go from there? But I do think it's super important that we highlight the fact that we need to acknowledge post-treatment, not only patient but family members, how they're feeling. And I think with our family, it was okay. Life is going to go back to normal, even though after I lost all my hair and I regained, I mean, my hair was kind of like where I was in my cancer journey, right? So when my hair was gone, I was kind of in the middle of it, and then it was coming back. I was getting a little stronger. And then, I remember where it got to a point where I was wearing a wig and my hair was coming back. My wig was sliding all over the place.
Oh, no.
Like, okay,
Yes.
it's maybe time to shed this thing. and I was getting hot and itchy.
Yeah,
and all
I
this
would
stuff.
imagine.
It's time to get rid of this thing. So, mom's getting better. It's like we're kind of looking a little more closely to how I remember her looking. But what was really going on inside of me was maybe a different story, because I wasn't quite ready to just say, okay, we're going to go back to the way it was, because we just can't do that, nor do we want to do that. And I think that's super important, to acknowledge that new awareness, that new you, whatever that new you is going to be looking like. And ask yourself, I love to ask the question, why, what motivates me to live? Because it gets so to the thick of it, what motivates me to live? And well, of course, my family, I have this huge motivator, and I've got my kids and my husband and my close siblings and my parents, and that helps in developing change when we can keep grounded in that. Why do you want to live? And cancer forces you to do that. You don't really ask yourself that. We kind of take it for granted, right? We have breath in our lungs and we just kind of keep going. But when we are faced kind of with this diagnosis and then potential prognosis, how do we manage that? We have to, really kind of it gets deep. It gets really deep. Like why are we living? Who motivates us? And then that perhaps can allow us to find new meaning in our life, where we are maybe exploring things that we wouldn't have done before. We wouldn't have had the discipline to do that, but because we've faced something so horrifically challenging in our life, that, okay, well, this takes on a whole new meaning. It takes on a whole new life of looking at lifestyle changes, and that starts with your heart, and it starts with your head. And I think, it's super important in what you're doing. The work that you're doing, Jamie, is so important, and I think it's amazing. Some people want to pretend it never happened, and they will just move right through it. It's a bad memory. They don't want to go there. Their hair is grown back. They look the same. They're not the same. They look the same, but they're just going to keep moving forward. And the only danger with that is if you do get a reoccurrence, now you've got to really face it, kind of a double whammy, because you never really did the first time. So I think it's super important to have those conversations with family members. I wish I could talk to my parents, but they're both gone, and I wasn't able to really ask them. And I'm not really sure. They had 2 daughters that had breast cancer. I think it would be probably pretty challenging and hard to kind of talk to them about that time. But I do know that being surrounded by friends, and they were able to do the caring bridge, which which is a journaling, and talk to their friends and get a lot of, it's kind of like the Facebook for breast cancer or cancer survivors or cancer patients right now.
Yep.
To kind of have that open communication of, and I do think that would be something that people could employ even now. Even if you're not a patient, you could do a caring bridge, and you could talk about, please leave comments. Sometimes that's easier for people to leave a comment than actually talk in person about to somebody. But to have these conversations, I have a friend that's actually in stage 4 ovarian cancer now, and it's so nice to be able to leave her amazing comments about hope, and leave something funny, in there too, and lighten it up a bit, because it is really a serious, sad place to be. But how she's handling that is so beautiful. And I think this is what life is really about. It's when we're able to really unpeel everything and get to the core of our being, and why we're living and why, who and the people around us, and not be afraid to tell them we love them or we appreciate them, or just, beautiful moments that they're going to remember, that maybe if something tragic doesn't happen in our life, we just don't talk about it. But with cancer, it allows us to be able to talk about really meaningful, deep things that mean a lot. And it really is what, to me, it's all about. It's all about. And so in that ways, cancer can really be a blessing to someone's life if you allow it.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're so right in that, life is finite, and so to really think about, why am I living? Right? What do I want my life to be? Cancer sometimes is that wake up call, or the signal to say, whoa, oh my gosh, like, I want to think about this, because while we all know that everybody dies, right? Death is at the end of the road for everyone, and everything dies. We often, so many people, like you said, sort of put their head down and live life, kind of ignoring that. And I think that's sort of what we're both saying, and that is being intentional, taking time as you go through this period of overwhelm to really think carefully, and to sit with yourself, to allow yourself to process the fear of, oh my gosh, I'm going to die someday. And how do I want to live? What are my priorities? And what can I do to support myself, my being, to live in the way that I want to? And there's so much there. So many things to talk about.
Unpack.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes. And clearly, we both are so, as our faces both light up, right? We're both so passionate about that. And I'm excited to really dive into some of those topics over the coming weeks and months with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I really hope that the listeners out there got something that they can take away from this. And it's been a lovely conversation just to be able to visit something we don't really talk about very much, right? So we're kind of moving on to the next step, but it's super important to talk about right post-treatment before we get to the next step, before we get to the to-do list, right? Yeah. And to kind of visit that, and before moving forward. It's kind of remind me of meditation, right? We need to take those 2 minutes and focus on our breath, and focus on the present moment, and focus on just being in the now before moving on to the next to-do list. And that's kind of what I feel like this session, what we did today, was we did a little meditative work. So
yes. Well said. So, I would just say thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. Please provide any feedback. We want to know what you want to know, what you need. How can we be here for you and support you on this journey? So please let us know.
Absolutely.
Provide feedback, rate us, and like us, and help us get the word out that we're here.
Yeah, so. Like and subscribe, guys. If you like what you heard today, please pass on the word. We really need those likes and comments to grow. Otherwise, it's really difficult. So we need your help. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more of it, or you think this might be helpful to somebody out there who really needs to hear our message.
Yeah. All right.
All right. You take care. Have a good week.
You too.
Bye.
This podcast is here to support you. If you liked it, please rate, review, follow, and share, since that's the best way to grow a community together. Please leave us comments and feedback. We're here to help.